on for several generations till there's the final, until we seal the story. Here, I'm gonna, because the next piece also has to do. I'm gonna read before we look inside the Alshech again. I'm gonna read some. Okay.
It's almost, there's more conversation with Cain than there is for anybody until Avram, really.
I think there's, aside from the commandments that Noach has given, there's much more conversation here between Cain and God than Noach and God, except that Noach gets mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And I would say, generally speaking, the dialogue in general, this is a very lengthy, I think this is up there. I didn't do a count, but it's fascinating. Okay, so we said, we've been talking about that he's told that he's cursed more than the earth, and he will be na v'nad. There are two words here, na v'nad. Na means that he will be a wanderer, that he'll be nomadic, that he'll never settle in one place at any time. And nad means that even when he's in a particular place, he will not interface with the place in a permanent settlement. So that it's a double wandering, okay? And then Cain says, "Listen, I can't carry. Are you telling me that that my sin is too great to bear? Meaning, I know that you bear sin. That's one of the things that we call God. He bears sin, right? And then he says, and I'm going to be dead, and you're telling me that the worst of it is yet to come. When I leave this world, I got nowhere to go. How can that be? And then anybody who sees me is going to kill me. And we talked about what that means. He's concerned for the animals because now that he lost this Tzelem Elokim, even the animals won't have any fear over him, and he needs God to help him. So God gives him a sign. We have to discuss what that is. And then, so I'm just going to give you a preview. Mm-hmm. There's like about 10 psukim here. Till the end I'm going to read to the end of the chapter very, very swiftly. Okay. So God tells him, therefore, and this is the last piece I think that we're talking about. What does it mean that anybody who kills Cain, right? Cain will have 7 generations, will have passed before they're punished, right? Mm-hmm. So God says, really, you have 7 generations, and then He gave him a sign. Okay, and now. Chapter 4, verse 16. Vayetze Cain milifnei Adonai vayeshev be'eretz Nod kidmat Eden. So then it says that Cain departed from before God, and he settled. After we said he wouldn't settle, vayeshev, he settled in a land called Nod, which is very similar to the word Nud, which means Nud means the impermanent dwelling, meaning the inability to dwell in a particular place. But the name of the place is called Nod. Okay. Vayeda Cain et ishto, so he had his wife with them, and they were intimate. Vatar vatelet et Chanoch, they had a son Chanoch. Vayihi boneh ir, vayikra shem ha'ir, kishem beno Chanoch. And he built a city, and he named the city like he named his son Chanoch. Vayivaled lechanoch et Irad, ve'Irad yaladet Mechuyael, Mechuyael yaladet Metushael, u'Metushael yaladet Lamech. So here we have 7 generations all the way, right, from Chanoch to Irad to Mechuyael to Mesushael to Lamech. Lamech is the 7th generation. So what happened with Lamech? Lamech was Vayikach lo Lamech shtei nashim. He had 2 wives. Shema achat Ada. His first wife's name was Ada. V'shem Hashem Tzila, and his second wife was Tzila. Vateled Ada et Yavel. Ada had Yavel. Hu haya avi Yoshev olam mikneh. He was a nomadic shepherd. V'shem achiv Yuval, and his brother was Yuval. Hu haya avi called Tofes Kinor ve'ugav, and Yuval was the grandfather of all musical instruments. V'tzila gam hi yalda Tuval Cain. Tzila had a child named Tuval Cain. Lotesh kol choresh nechoshes barzal. He was a smith who worked as a metallurgist and was able to refine and fashion all kinds of copper and iron. V'achot Tuval Cain Nama, and they had a sister named Nama. Nama ends up marrying Noach. Okay, so now, Vayomer Lemech lenashav. Lemech tells his wives, Ada v'Tzila, Shema'an koli neshe Lemech. Listen to my voice, wives of Lemech. Ha'azene imrati, heed my utterance. Ki ish haragti lefitzi. I have killed a man to my blemish. V'yeled l'chubarati, and I've killed a child to my chubarati. The shorish is chavar, which can mean 2 things. It can mean a bruise or a connection. So here it says, to my blemish I've killed a man, and to my bruise I've killed a child. And then he says, Ki shivasayim yukam Cain, because Cain has been avenged after God had said after 7 generations. V'lemech, and for me, he's telling his wives, shivim v'shiva, I got 77. What is going on here? Okay? So it's important to know that there's a midrash that says that Lemech was blind. And one of his favorite things to do was to hunt. So he would sit there with his grandkid, and he'd hold he'd point the rifle, and the kid would tell him when there was something in the crosshairs, and he would fire. What a strange arrangement. I guess he couldn't trust his kid with heavy machinery, but okay, so what happened was, the kid said, oh, pray, and he shot. And then they realized it was Cain. And out of bewilderment, he slapped his hands together, and he crushed the head of the kid.
Ooh.
So he has 2 deaths to report to his wives, and he's trying to tell them, listen, man, I was blind, it's not my fault, my blemish, right? I killed a man. Who was that? Cain. And it's even lesser, right, it wasn't my fault at all that I killed the kid. Okay, so that's the midrash behind these psukim, and we're going to get to that pretty soon, okay? Okay, so now back in the Alshech. So we want to...
Page 60. Yes.
Okay. Okie dokie. Are you sure we did the piece before?
We did part of the piece before. You could do that again.
Okay, so we're going to start from page 60, page Samech in the Alshech HaKadosh and Torah Moshe, in the second column, the 3rd to last paragraph. Tetvav. Vayomer Hashem. So God said, therefore, anybody who kills Cain, he will be avenged within 7 generations. V'hinei ha'metargim v'Rashi zal, so Onkelos and Rashi, they explain that Shivatayim Yukam, that for 7 generations, in 7 generations he will be avenged. Ki Shiva Dora Talulo Sheyashuv. He's got up to 7 generations that Cain can do tshuva. V'hinei lefizeh amro kol horei Cain. Therefore, God is saying, anybody who kills him, hu mishulal gzeira, he is lacking he is outside the purview of this decree. Meaning God is decreeing that he should have at least 7 generations to do tshuva, and therefore he's precluding anybody of interfering for 7 generations. V'chein perish Rashi, shehu kematchil lahagzim ubilti gomer hagzeira. It's, Rashi says that God is like making some sort of grandiose exclamation, but not defining what it is. He says, oh, well then in 7 generations, ... 7 generations what? What's going to happen if they get involved within 7 generations? L'chein achshav, therefore, the Alshech says that there's a loose end here. But mashi adanu mirabotenu zal, that which we know from Chazal, ki l'chein hi shvua. Whenever the verse says l'chein, therefore, it's an oath. So when God says l'chein, therefore, anybody who kills Cain will be avenged within 7 generations, God is making an oath. Ubazeh efshar, therefore it's possible to understand, ki hishpiahu yitbarach et burav bal yahargu. God is including all his creation into this oath, meaning he's making them swear. V'zeo amro, and this is what the verse means when it says l'chein kol horeg, therefore, meaning God says, I swear, I'm forcing everybody to partake of this oath that they're not allowed to molest Cain within 7 generations. Ki yeh chomer shvua al kol horeg Cain, that the validity of the oath will fall on those who kill Cain. V'atam, and the reason is, ki kvar Cain shiva atayim shehim shiva dorot ya'arichu lo al chet'o, that because of his sin, God will extend to him 7 generations. V'ad hazmanahu lo yigabo, and until the end of that time, nobody may touch him. Ulai yitaken, maybe he will rectify et asher ivto, that which he has perverted. V'chein haya, and that's exactly what happened. K'moshe amru zal, like Chazal tell us, shetolu lo ad hamabel, that God waited until the generation of the Mabel. V'alav ne'amar, and then it says, vayimach et kol hayikum, that God erased all that existed. Shayat talui birifion, meaning that ultimate erasure was because they let go. They did not take here. He's saying that when God told Noach that there would be a Mabel, the whole point of saying that there would be a Mabel was to inspire them to do tshuva that there shouldn't be a mabul. So that when it says finally, when God did go through with it and killed everybody in the mabul, the verse articulates in a way that's understood that it was because they dropped the ball. There's that word again, rifayon, I pointed out last time from the Pachad Yitzchak about, right, letting go of something that you know is important, meaning that ultimately the Chumash blames that generation. Just because God said it's going to happen, right, he's extending so that they do tshuva and avert it. Okay, so Cain himself was concerned, he had fear for two aspects. Achat, the first, the powers of anger, of wrath, that flow through the world. Meaning, any sort of aggression that might he's defenseless if anybody starts up with him. Shenit, and the second thing is, not from ne'er-do-wells necessarily, but meha ba'alei chayim, the living creatures, meaning animals. Kechayot ra'ot v'domeam, like wild animals and things of their ilk. Al Cain, al Harishon Amar, so regarding a person that might harm him, God said, L'chein kol harei Cain, don't worry, I'm making an oath. Ve'al habalei chayim, and regarding to the wild animals that might attack him, Amar, because remember, that order of creation that we take for granted, that only happened, that topsy-turvy where, animals were supposed to have fear of man, right? God commanded that God instructed Adam that he was supposed to sublimate the whole world, and he was given license and power over the creatures, and we said that was a function of his projection of Tzelem Elokim, and ultimately after the Mabul, you see that there's a food chain, etc., and man can eat animals, etc., etc., but here, this is an anomaly, meaning over here, by Cain, this is just a unique, it's him individually now that's in that state. The average person didn't have to worry about animals attacking them. But Cain did, we said, because he lost that Tzelem Elokim. Okay, ultimately this becomes a generational thing, but I'm just pointing out now that this is a concern that he has. And therefore, so regarding that, God gives him a sign. Somehow this sign is a replacement because he can't project Tzelem Elokim himself. He needs to be given some sort of sign to chase them off out of the mercy of God. Shetipol chitat Elohim alehem, that the fear of God should be upon the animals not to harm Cain. Okay? The Amar, Sha'al Yedei HaTshuva Sheshav, that regarding the tshuva, the level of tshuva that he has done already, in recognizing that he has sinned, Hoel Mechatza, it actually helped for half. Meaning, Cain did recognize his sin to the degree that it took off half his load. V'yasuru mimenu hana. So God had said the prescription was na v'nad, that he will wander and he won't be able to settle. But you see that God lifted the wandering from him. Eventually he does settle. He just settles in a temporary, he can't have a settlement like a regular person, but he does stay in a localized geographic place. And we're going to see that, we mentioned that he settles in the land of Nod, right, which is Kidmat Eden, Gan Eden, it is east of Eden. But Kidmat also means before. It's like when you stand in front of something, you're beyond the reach of the thing, but you're facing it. So he's oriented to Gan Eden now, but he's distanced from it. He's outside, and the place that he's settled in is called Nod. So the Alshech is noting that even though he was told that he was going to wander, in the end he does settle. He only has Nud. Okay. So he's saying that half of that was alleviated because indeed of the tshuva that he did. Kema amaram zal, like the words of our sages, v'zehu amro vayeshev be'eretz Nod. Why is the name of that place Nod? V'yiyeh lefi perushenu, it will be according to our approach. Ki hana hayashlo yiyeh yoshev b'makom echad. When God said he will be na, he will shake, he will be in transit, he will not be settled, it means that he will never settle in one particular place. Rak metutal, just not planted. Just na means like to shake, to move. It means kinetic. It means movement. Means non-stationary. V'nod hu kigam b'makom asher yimatzeh lo yeh miyushav ba. And nod, when God said that he will be a nod, it means that even in the place that he will be found, he will not be settled there. Rak nod, not rooted. V'yomar ki ata vayeshev bli tiltal. But yet you see over here the Torah reports that he settles without wandering. Ki im ba'aretz ahi, rather in that particular place, hayan nod mina uba. He settled in a permanent place, just in a state of nod. Ve'efshar ki ha'ot shesamlo. So when it said that God gave him a sign, the word for sign is also a letter. So it's possible, the Alshech HaKadosh says, that the letter that he gave him to ward off the animals was ot vav. It was the letter vav. Ve'al kein nitna b'milat nod v'na'aset nod. And the Torah is telling us that the nod becomes nod because it's given that vav. Okay, he cannot project a yud ke vav ke himself, but he's divinely granted a vav. Ve'al kein nitna b'milat nod v'na'aset nod. And that's expressed here by the word Nod being the theme, turning into the land of Nod. V'yi here, it's funny, Nod means to be disconnected. And a node is a coordinate in a hub, right? Or connected to a matrix, a node. It's part of a greater system. It's interconnectivity. V'yi al ki nit'ated lavo b'yeter. Shinikra Yitro Bivav Yetera. This is beautiful. So remember, we said early on when we discussed the whole saga of Cain, we mentioned that in the end, he's going to turn into Yitro and get his completed rectification. And Yitro literally means Yeter, extra, Vav, granted a Vav. So that's meaning it's because of this Vav that he was given, somehow that he was able to have some sort of longevity and be able to heal himself to become Yitro. Okay, what a happy, even in the course of tragedy, we're given hints at happy endings. Ve'efshar haya b'makom kidmat Eden, and it could be that this place, Nod, was before Eden. L'ma'an yizkar avedato. Why did he station himself specifically facing Eden? So the first approach that the Alshech is going to mention is that this is to show that he was involved in tshuva, and he permanently planted himself from the place that he was banished from. Laman Yizkar Avedato, in order that he should constantly be reminded of his loss, Be'edan Gan Elokim, that he was exiled from the delights of the garden of God, Asher Ibed Birisho, that he lost with his wickedness, Laman Al Yedei Cain, that through this orientation, Yigmar Teshuvato, he will be inspired to finish his repentance.
But he didn't lose Gan Eden, Adam lost Gan Eden.
That's true. It's true. So, let's say that he was just concerned about the Navinad and about the terrible thing that he did. Would that be a full tshuva? Or does it also have to, meaning is not his whole saga with Hevel more of a result, didn't we say, of the embodiment of the wretchedness that man had become after, right? So, meaning now he gets it. Now it's not just about him. He's the embodiment of an evil in humanity, and humanity has to get back on track. You see the real depth of tshuva here. That's an excellent question, but I'm forced to say what I'm saying. Okay? So, but there's another spin too. This last piece. O Yomar, alternatively, Vayetze Cain miyot lefnei Hashem. It says that he left from the face of God, and he settled in Nod, which is east of Eden. Shelo haya Hashem neged einav. God was not oriented across from his eyes, metaphorically speaking. Lashuv b'tshuva lemano, in order to repent for his sake. Ki im kidmat panav. He was only concerned with what was in front of his face. Al havat haschar shebe'eden, those delights that Eden represented. Ve'al Cain, meaning he was looking at the prize despite tshuva. Ve'al Cain, and therefore ho lo hachetzi, it helped him the first half of the tshuva that he did. Shenita mimenu na, that it was taken away from him the harsh prescription of being a wanderer and a nomad. V'nishar nad, and it was only decreed on him ultimately that he had to be a renter, but not an owner. V'zehu vayeshev be'eretz Nod kidmat Eden, and the verse affirms when he settles in the land of Nod, east of Eden, sheyashav be'eretz Nod, he actually stayed in that state of Nod, al hiyoto kidmat Eden, which was fundamentally kidmat Eden. V'lo bitel hu yitbarach gam et anad, and God did not absolve him also of this decree of being Nad, ka'asher bitel hana, like he had absolved him of the Na, al shelo haya kidmat Hashem, because instead of being before God, he was kidmat Eden. Okay? It's a different different approach. Okay? So now, everybody remembers the story we just read about grandpa went hunting with grandson. And it was a double tragedy. Okay. It's a short little piece here. Okay, so Lemech says, listen, ladies, God gave Cain 7 generations. He'll certainly give me 77. What's that about?
That's weird.
Right. So he jumps. He doesn't discuss anything. He just jumps to the 77 as kind of like an extension of the discussion of the 7. Okay? Amar Rabbeinu Zal. So Chazal come and they instruct us. They give us. They fill in the details of the story. Ki Lemech haya suma. Lemech was blind. V'haya tofes hakeshet. He would hold the bow. Latzud tzayid chaya of in order to hunt an animal or a fowl. V'yeled lefanav. And he had the boy in front of him. V'amar hayeled, and the boy would say, Shahaya roeh negdo tzayid, that he'd say, hey, we're right across from prey. V'haya ish, but really it was a man. It was the degraded Cain. V'amar hayeled, v'yara, and he released, v'yara hachetz, he fired the arrow, v'harago, and he killed him. V'achakach kishahoda ilav, and then when he was told to him, yikes, Pa, that was Cain. Tama, he was bewildered. Vayisbok et kapav, and he clasped his hands together. Umiech rosh hayeled shelefanav, and he crushed the skull of the boy in front of him, ben shtei kapav, between his 2 palms. Nimtza, turns out, shaharag shogeg, he killed by accident. Vahaya mitnatzal lenashav, and he was apologizing to his wives, bal yifreshu mimenu, that they should not leave him. Va'amar ki shiva doro talu l'Cain. God had given Cain 7 generations. Ve'elav yitlu shivim v'shiva, and certainly God will give him 77. Ve'efshar, and it's possible, yatza lo ha'cheshbon hazeh. This is how he came to that calculation. Ki hine, Cain chata mezid, Cain sinned on purpose. It was a malicious act. V'hu chata shogeg. But Lemech only sinned by accident. In fact, I wouldn't even say shogeg. It wasn't his fault at all. There was no way that he could have not done that. He wasn't looking to kill anybody. Al Cain, therefore, yitlu lo eser pa'amim. Certainly he'll have 10 times as much as the 7, shiva, mashatal l'Cain, from what Cain got. Why? Because I guess you could say that doing something on purpose is at least 10 times worse than doing it by accident. Ve'od shiva al shahaya karov la'ones. And then another 7, because it wasn't just a regular case of shogeg. It was ones. He had no free will at all in the matter. Ki hayasuma, he was blind. Ve'ena dom l'shogeg zulos, and it's not like somebody who had the proper resources and just didn't employ them, the proper faculties. He was not capable of protecting himself from this terrible thing. This is not his fault. V'zeo ki ish haragti, when he says, for a man I have killed, bishvil petza shebi, because of my blemish, that means because I was blind, that's what killed the man. Kisuma anochi, I'm blind. V'yeled, and the boy that he had killed, bishvil chabur asi, shasiti beish, that's because of the minor offense that I did on Cain, meaning the chabura here, the bruise. The petza, he says, I've killed a man because I'm blemished. That means it wasn't my fault, it was all because I was blind. And the child that I killed, why did I kill? That was a direct result of the bruise of killing Cain. Shekol kan charali mitzad da'agat chaburati. That everything, all the enmity and the anger that is that the situation stirs up against me is I was just, because I was so concerned, I was so terrified of the chabur that I had caused of killing Cain. And because of that terrible thing, because I felt so bad, that's what caused even the child to be killed. So, safakti kapai, I clasped my hands together, upagu bayeled, and that hurt the child. It was because I was so terrified and ashamed and so distraught over what I had done. That in itself should also make it even less than a shogeg. Okay, so that's that piece over there.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
I mean, 77 generations is longer than lifespan at that stage, isn't it?
What generation are we up to? How many generations has it been?
It's been 7.
No, I'm saying, where are we now?
Now,
Yeah.
oh,
Do you know how long
50?
77 generations is in the Torah?
it's a lot.
It was 10 generations from Adam to Noach, 10 generations from Noach to Abraham.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the calculations is irrelevant, really.
Right. It's a way of quantifying and qualifying. Yeah. He's basically saying there's no way I should be harmed for this. Let's not dissolve the whole family. Let's go through this tragedy together. We're still operative. I'm not a monster. We're not doomed. What a terrible place to be. So I want to take a step back here, and I want to note, I had another thought. Let's look at this long saga in terms of, let's zoom out for a second. You have Adam and that terrible tragedy, and you have Cain and Hevel and that terrible tragedy. And this keeps on going till Lemech. So I wanted to say is that from Lemech's point of view, what he's experiencing are terrible tragedies that are God-made. And why does he have to be involved in this terrible, like, these are things that it's like the terrible chaos of bad things happening for no apparent reason, and they're not evil, and it's like you experience that without the context of how God is tying up loose ends. And that's a very real experience in the world. But if you put it into the context of the 7 generations of Cain, God is basically saying, even later on when they're removed and they're experiencing all these things, that's just the divine justice of working out all the rectifications that have to be for that terrible thing that preceded it. So I'm saying it's an interesting study in perspectives, and something we could possibly relate to, the bewilderment of terrible things happening, and not being able to see, and not having a hand in it. That's really reality working itself out, which was all in the cheshbon of Cain. I'm just pointing that out. That things take a long time, and from Ada and Tzila's point of view, they woke up one day and they had terrible, terrible tragedy.
But I was saying that he didn't actually do the full teshuvah, Cain.
Right. Cain, absolutely.
He didn't.
No.
And that's why he died? It's after 7 days?
No, he was going to... Remember we said there's a word that God used, and it says ve'ata, now. And the Alshech made a point of saying now means that there is nothing you can do to change your state now in this world. However, the worst part of the punishment is waiting for you in the next world, and you can totally, you got to do tshuva. And the question is, meaning what was the tshuva that we note, that we do have on record? And the Alshech is saying he must have done some sort of half tshuva, because right after God tells him the price he's got to pay, he cuts it in half. And then he says, the closing statements of Cain, it could be understood in one of two ways. Either he did continue to do tshuva, or he didn't. Now, regardless, what's amazing is, either it's a function of Cain's tshuva or not, but ultimately Yisro gets fixed. That's a big mystery. That the Alshech does not make clear to us. If there's so much ambiguity in the ultimate character of Cain, why does Yisro end up being associated with Cain, who's such a wonderful guy? That's still a little bit of a mystery to me. I'm noting that. Okay. Should we start the next piece? Do you want to do another piece?
Yeah, we've got another. We've got another 15 minutes.
For Alshech?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to read some verses. So it's interesting, we mentioned that there's a Chanoch here. Chanoch was Cain's son, but that was the first Chanoch. There's a later Chanoch, who's very, very special.
He went up to heaven, right?
Yeah. Okay, this is not the Chanoch we're talking about. This is the first. This is the first Chanoch. Okay. So the next verse after this discussion that Lemech has with Ada and Sila, the verse says like this: Vayeda Adam od et ishto. Adam, remember Granddaddy Adam?
Yeah.
So Vayeda Adam od et ishto. He knew his wife intimately. Od, again, extra. Now there's another anomaly here. It's very, very rare that you will find the word verb, the verb vayeda, to know, as a reference to an intimate act, You don't usually find that more than once with the same couple. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the first time that they're intimate. It's characterized as Yeda, and yet here, and it doesn't call. It mentions Adam. It doesn't say Chava. It says Ishta, Mrs. Adam, the Rebbetzin. Okay, Vateled Ben, and indeed, the child was born. Vatikrat Shemo Shes, and they called him Shes. Kishat li Elohim zera acher, because God has firmly planted for me another seed. Tachas Hevel, in exchange for Hevel. Ki harago Cain, because he was killed by Cain. Why Vayeda Adam et Ishto? It didn't have to say Od, and it says that he called him Shes because God planted another seed. Why does it say to firmly place? Why doesn't it say because God gave us Asher Natan? What does it mean?
Shes means what?
Shasta means to place firmly.
Place firmly.
Yeah, but it means here it's used as provided. But the connotation is to firmly place. Okay, and Zera Acher, another seed. You could have said Ben Acher, another child. The Torah says Ben Acher all the time. Tachas Hevel, an exchange of Hevel. Why is this an exchange of Hevel? And why is it important to say Ki Hargo Cain? Because Cain killed him. Okay. Okay. Vayeda Adam. Ra'oi lashit lev, it is worth taking note. Ma inyan amro shasli v'lo amar nasanli. Why does the verb used by the verse, why is it shas, meaning to plant, to place, as opposed to natanli, granted to me? Ve'od, another question. Sheyikra'ehu lefi zeh natan. Ki natan lo Hashem zeracher. The verse says that God has given here. Kishas li Elohim zeracher. So, really, the pasuk is saying that God gave him, and therefore we should call him Natan. V'gam lama amar zera v'lo amar ben. Why does the verse say another seed but not another son? Ve'od ki kol shemet lo ben v'nolad lo acher. Anybody who loses a son and is born another, hayitzdak, is it proper? Yushat lo shem al hora'a shenitan tachat hamet. Does it make sense to name the child after the conception that was supposed to be, meaning this child is supposed to be a replacement for somebody who's dead. If you're telling me that this child is a replacement for somebody who's dead, give him that name. V'halo kol ben hayalud hu b'fnei atzmo v'lo b'makom acher. A kid that's born is a kid that's born. He's not a replacement for someone else. V'gam amro tachat hevel hu miutar. And when the verse says instead of hevel, that's extra. V'chein amro ki harogo Cain. And also when it says that Cain was killed because he was killed by Cain, that's extra. Matzarech lahasker avon Cain pam acheres. Why do we have to mention Cain's sin one more time? Biyoto bilti medaber, but we're not even talking about him here. V'gam amro, and also when the verse says zera acher, another seed, v'lo amar ben acher, it doesn't say another child. What's the significance of that? Ve'od. Amro ki shasli, v'lo amar vayikra shemo shet ki amar shasli Elohim. Okay, so he wants to say that there is a difference between the shas and the shet, meaning the word that God placed is different than the name that he got. Okay, it says Shet Kishatli. Okay, and it doesn't say. It says Vatikra Shemo Shet, and they called his name Shet Kishatli Elokim Zeracher, because God has placed for me another seed. Okay, so I'm not sure what his point is over here. It says Ki Shatli, and it doesn't say Vayikra Shemo Shet Ki Amar Shatli. Okay, it doesn't say, I don't know what he's pointing out here. It seems that the pasuk is saying very specific, very straightforward that why he's being called that. But the Alshech HaKadosh seems to make a distinction. Let's figure out what that is based on the answer. Okay. Amnam. Hine Shet Yadanu Shehu Hevel. So we know that Shet is really a reincarnation of Hevel. V'hine hu zera shel acher, and he's actually the seed of another. Hu shel Cain. It's the seed of Cain. Not literally, but it would have been the responsibility of Cain to provide a replacement for Hevel. We have something called Yibum, which is the Levirate marriage, right? The idea is that somebody who dies without children, there's a mitzvah d'oraita for his brother to make him shem al achiv, that means to take his widowed wife and to produce an offspring that will be a replacement to fulfill his bloodline. Mm-hmm. So by right, Cain had a brother named Hevel. Hevel died without children, and Cain is responsible now for the mitzvah of carrying on his seed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so really this would have been Cain's responsibility. Should have been the seed from another. V'lo amar ben acher. That's why it doesn't say another son. No, I'm sorry, I jumped the line. Okay, so v'hine hu zera shel acher, hu shel Cain. Ki elav haya nogea hadavar al yedei yibum. Really, Cain, the mitzvah of the Levirate marriage would have fallen to Cain. Al Cain, therefore, amar hine biskulat echut ha'ach hu hakem zera la'achiv. Therefore, because of the preciousness of the worth, the quality of the brother, hu hakem zera la'achiv, he established seed for his brother. Ach ata, however, now shatli Elohim zera shel acher. Now God has planted really the seed of another. Shehu shel achiv shel Hevel, the brother of Hevel. V'oto hakoch hamiyuchad la'ach shatli Elohim be'echuto, that special power that. By the way, I'm going to read this again. We're referring to the quality of Hevel. This quality of Hevel that was lost, that God wanted to restore. So He's investing that from instead of Cain's initiative, it's being invested through Adam. The oto hakoach hamiyuchad, and that power, that energy, which is special, which is unique, la'ach, that was to the brother, meaning Hevel, shatli Elokim, God had placed that be'echuto, with that same quality, ki halo zeh haben hu tachat Hevel, that this child should be a replacement for Hevel. Ki hu sheba tachat Hevel rishon. This actual soul is the replacement for Hevel. V'atam sheshmo hu yitbarach. Shesamo hu yitbarach bi v'lo haya ma'achiv. And the reason why God took that zera, which should have been from an acher, meaning from Cain, and He gave it to me, Adam says, halo hu, that is because, ki hine harago Cain, because Cain made himself unworthy of being able to fix Hevel, because Hevel died through his hand. Ve'ech yizke mashe harago, how could he who killed him merit to be responsible, right? Lashuv lahavio la'olam, to bring him again to the world. And therefore, lo ne'amar, it doesn't say ki amar, because Adam had said, shatli, God has placed for me. Ki ena davar talui ba'amirato. It has nothing to do with Adam's decision, his declaration, his choice. Ki ime Hashem yatzah davar. It's only that because God had decided to do this, levilti gilgel zchut al yedei chayev, so that a meritorious thing should not come through somebody who is not worthy. Meaning, the problem is like this. Cain has the ability he's meant to the responsibility when somebody in Hevel circumstances needs rectification, so his brother, which in this case would be Cain, would be responsible for bringing that to bear. Now, Adam has no say in the matter, but it's impossible for Cain to do that because it's unworthy that rectification should come from somebody who actually was responsible to kill him. So God did this miraculous thing, Adam says, where He took it from that place and He brought it through me. That's how the Alshech is understanding these words. You look troubled.
If a brother kills another brother,
yeah,
he's patur from Ibum?
I don't. First of all, that's an excellent question, but it's like this. First of all, Yibum itself is very, very touchy issue because it's a asitocha lo saseh shebetara, meaning normally aside from the unique circumstances of Yibum, it's an isur d'oraisa to ever marry a brother's wife,
right?
Whether he's alive or dead,
right?
Okay. So now, in order to uplift that, there has to be a rectification that's possible. The theory here is that it would be unworthy. He's in Cain and Hevel's state. He cannot be a portal to facilitate that, and therefore that act would not. Right. So you're asking the halacha if there would be such a thing. That's a good question. I don't know the halacha, but I will tell you that just on the basis of a general klal that we have, ein kateger nasa saneger, the moral thinking behind this is very easy to understand. Meaning we say that a prosecutor cannot become a defender, right? So the Kohen Gadol does not wear gold when he does the unique, on Yom Kippur, when he does the unique services that are only for Yom Kippur, he doesn't wear the gold because the gold is a reminder. Gold has been somehow blemished forever in the context of Yom Kippur because Yom Kippur is going to rectify the Egel, and the gold is the symbol for the Egel. So we say once this thing has been besmirched, it is made unworthy, the proper tshuva, you would think, maybe somebody would make an argument, no, just the opposite. Cain killed the guy, maybe it's on Cain to bring him back to life, but until Cain becomes not a killer, there's something very inappropriate about it. So la halacha, I don't know, but I would say based on this, when things were like in the formative stages of human history, when things were spiritually pure, maybe based on this reasoning, the Alshech.
It's very interesting that the Yibum we learn in Bereshit with Yudah.
Right. So that was the case with the father.
Up into the father.
Well, that's before Matan Torah. It's anybody. It's really the closest relative, and you find that in play even after Matan Torah in Megillat Ruth. That Ploni Almoni, the anonymous cousin who was closer to Elimelech than Boaz, had first dibs, and it was politically irreconcilable, so he passed, and it went to Boaz. Now Shelah, when Shelah died, Yehuda. When Onan died, Shelah was supposed to, but he was concerned, and he didn't allow that. And God made it that it should be daddy, which it's clear that God wanted it to be daddy. And there was another much more basic, speaking about Rus, the story of Lot and his daughters is a story of Yibum. It wasn't he didn't engage in the mitzvah, it was the girls. But that's the whole thing is Yibum. Why is David HaMelech always from a long string of Yibum? What's the idea of Yibum? People are harped on the weird circumstances of and they say that that's to hide from but there's a much more fundamental, it's not just hiding from the Yetzer Hara, there's a fundamental reason why it has to be Yibum, which is so pashut nobody talks about. And that is because the whole project of Mashiach is a case of Yibum. If you look at the whole story of Adam HaRishon and the loss of Gan Eden, the whole idea of David HaMelech being afforded from the neshama of Adam HaRishon to heal the world afterwards, rectification, that's the whole idea of Yibum, is all idea of plan B. When you drop the ball and everything stands in balance and it's going to be lost, there can be a plan B where you could pick up the ball and fix it. That is tshuva, that is the whole idea of getting kicked out of Gan Eden and all the hachana that Adam HaRishon made for the world after, meaning the whole idea is Yibum. And in fact, there's a beautiful pasuk in Ruth that talks about this. It talks about the redemption of the land, the property, and the redemption of the household. And it says, Ala geula ve'ala tmura. Geula is redemption, and tmura is when you can salvage something by switching it for something else. And that's the whole idea of Yibum, that you can replace something through something and keep the line going. And that's really the whole idea of the project of Am Yisrael and Mashiach, which is really Adam HaRishon's personal investment in fixing that which he lost. So that I'm just pointing out over there the idea of Yibum and the roles of daddies sometimes, but these are all good points. But this is what the Alshech says. Okay? Okay, so let's just finish up this paragraph. Okay. Ve'al Cain karu shet b'tzerei Hashem v'lo b'kamatz. So the verb shat, to plant or to place firmly, is with a kamatz. Shat. The vowelization under the shin is a kamatz. But shet, the vowelization is a tzerei, which is two dots, one next to each other. Lirmos b'shtei nekudot nifradot el shuv hevel nifrad mikayin lagamrei. It is hinting at the 2 points of 2 degrees of separation that Shet is experiencing from Hevel. That he's totally removed from Cain. because it totally subverted the rectification of the soul of Hevel to be reincarnated, subverted the channels of Cain, and therefore it's hinted at that Adam, it jumped the gun and it had to go through Adam, means that it had to go 2 steps. And that's the hint at the graphical notation of the 2 dots under the name of Shet. Okay? He's b'shtei nekudot, in 2 degrees, nifradot, with 2 points, he is removed. El shuv hevel, for the return of Hevel, nifrad, separated Mikain Lagami, is totally separated from Cain. Cain is not involved in the facilitation of this at all, and therefore it had to go 2 points. V'lo she'yavo harishon al yedei sheni, and therefore that the first does not have to come on the second. It should not have to come through the second.
So why does it say at the beginning, who shall Cain?
Meaning meaning the responsibility was on Cain. It's
The
really Cain's,
responsibility.
but there was problematic, so God didn't do that.
I see.
Okay?
I see. Okay.
Okay, okay.